Martin Luther King celebrations are coming up. People around Dallas are making signs and getting ready to celebrate Martin Luther King with a march and parade. This one here is kind of radical. The evils of capitalism are as real as the evils of racism and militarism. The problems of racial injustice and economic injustice cannot be solved without a radical redistribution of political and economic power. And that's a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King. It may be one of the reasons he got killed, because in the last year or so of his life, Dr. King took a very strong stand against militarism, against the war that was going on at that time. And people are taking that very serious because there are wars going on now that a lot of young people feel are unjust. The labor movement was the principal force that transformed misery and despair into hope and progress. That's a good one, especially because these signs are probably going to go into the labor contingent at the Dallas March and Rally on the 20th of March. What's yours say, Michael?
Martin Luther King once said, if we're going to have real equality in the U.S., we'll have to adopt a form of socialism.
That's a quote?
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to have real equality, the United States will have to adopt a form of socialism, he said.
He said a form of socialism, but just to make it simple on the sign, socialism.
Didn't have enough room.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And why are you working on this Dr. King stuff? I noticed you're a white boy.
Yeah.
So what does it mean to a young white man to celebrate Dr. King's life and accomplishments?
Well, Martin Luther King was, if not the most important leader of the American working class and labor movement in the 20th century. He's certainly one of them. And I can understand, I guess, some people, especially if you don't really know a lot about the history, you might, think it's, especially in a kind of a racialized society like we live in, that, that there tends to be still some racial unequal thinking about like how we think about Martin Luther King and people like maybe staying in their lane, as some people would put it. But it's important to understand that Martin Luther King was arm in arm with white, black, Hispanic, all kinds of different people at the March on Washington and throughout his career as an activist. And I think that one of his major insights in contributing to just the struggle for democracy in this country is understanding that all of our struggles, all of our, different ways in which we're trying to arrive at freedom ultimately, but just trying to improve our lives every day, they're all connected. And, we're only as free as the least free among us, and we're only, only as successful as a country as the least successful among us.
Mm-hmm. Do you think if Dr. King had lived, he'd have become a leader of the socialist movement?
That's an interesting question. I mean, it's important to know that Martin Luther King was not the same person throughout the entirety of his life. The Martin Luther King of the 1950s was not the same as the Martin Luther King of 1968. Mm-hmm. And what he would have looked like in the 2020s, mm-hmm. That is an interesting question. I strongly doubt that he would have in any way been against people like Bernie Sanders and mm-hmm. the various kind of movements and organizations that have brought socialism, but just the general call for a radical transformation of the country. I really doubt that he would have been on the opposing side of that.
The United Auto Workers has been posting a statement that said that Martin Luther King was the greatest labor leader of the 20th century. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't a labor leader at all. He was a civil rights leader. But they're saying that that's the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, the night he was killed, he was there helping to organize sanitation workers. I think he correctly understood. Like I said, these struggles are all connected, and the crux of it all is in like the situation of working people and mm-hmm. working people's conditions. And I think that that's something that maybe some people forget, but they need to be reminded that in order to be successful, we have to recognize that all of these struggles are connected with each other.
All these struggles are connected with each other. Do you think he knew that?
I certainly know that at the end of his life, he certainly did.
Yeah. Thanks. Here's some more signs. People are kind of coming and going. This one's about the color of your skin, the content of your character. And let's see, did I already do this one? A nation that continues to spend more money on military defense than social uplift is approaching spiritual death. Martin Luther King. I think that was from a speech at Riverside Church. And there, no labor is truly menial unless you are not getting adequate wages. Martin Luther King. All labor has dignity. Martin Luther King. This is some of the ones you did?
I did that one, yeah.
Uh-huh. What did Martin Luther King mean to you?
Martin Luther King was a great leader, and I really like how at the end of his life he spoke against capitalism and militarism and racism, and he connected all three. So
They were all connected.
yeah,
They were all similar.
exactly. And he also was he died on a sanitation worker strike.
Mm-hmm.
So he really became a radical in the true meaning of the word. That means to get to the root of the problem, which he was really getting to the root of the problem. He was talking about capitalism and how it was connected to racism. He talked about how capitalism started with the enslavement of Africans.
Mm-hmm.
And it was built off the exploitation of black slaves, as he says, and it survives off the exploitation of the poor, both black and white, and people abroad, as he said. So, yeah, he was getting really radical. So that's why I'm here, because I want to tell people that and be able to educate people about that.
Aren't you the co-chair of the Young Active Labor Leaders?
Yeah, I just got elected co-chair of the Young Active Labor Leaders. My name's Stu Becker. But
And that's part of the labor movement here in Dallas.
yeah, it's part of the labor movement. It's part of the AFL-CIO, because I'm also a teacher in Dallas ISD, and I'm a member of the Teachers Union, Alliance AFT, Local 2260.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. So the labor will be out marching, and you intend to go, and you think there'll be some other young people show up?
Yeah, I know there's going to be a lot of young people showing up. Should be a lot of people in the AFT Union march, and there'll be other people from y'all too showing up, and other activists I know.
And y'all is the Young Active Labor Leaders.
Exactly, y'all's Young Active Labor Leaders.
Mm-hmm. So the Martin Luther King March has got more and more significance for young people instead of less and less, do you think?
Yeah, it's got a lot of significance for young people, for all people, for young people, middle-aged people, and old people. It's got a significance for everybody. And I want to use the march as an opportunity, like I said, to expose the radical side of Martin Luther King. Be able to educate people about that.
All right. Appreciate it so much. All labor has dignity. And if we're going to have real equality, the U.S. will have to adopt socialism. Dr. Martin Luther King.